Crimson Media Group founder Shane Simmons chats with Gary about accidentally finding his agency's niche, how he has used referral relationships to build a client base without spending on ads, and what it takes to make good hiring decisions, and why great marketing is all about storytelling. This podcast is made by marketing entrepreneurs for marketing entrepreneurs. If you love creating something out of nothing and are hopelessly addicted to growth, you're one of us. Stop by each week to hear conversations with leading marketing entrepreneurs where we drill down on things like how to start and double your business, develop systems that can scale, and why success starts with who you are as a person. And after the episode, head over to the Agency Growth Engine server on Discord to talk shop and swap stories with the rest of our community. Let's dive in.
All right, we are live. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm really excited for our guest today. But before we jump into this podcast, please go and subscribe to this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube or any of the podcast players, just go up there, hit the subscribe button. It really, really helps us. It takes you less than a second. So just please go do that. I know you're ignoring me. I know you're not doing it. So please go do it. All right. I'm excited today because I have my friend Shane here, and Shane is in the dental industry with me. So I don't very often get to talk through dental marketing stuff. And I know it sounds super nerdy, but there is an actual industry of people who just work with dentists, and I love it. I've gotten stuck in it, and I didn't realize what I was getting into, and now we've come a long way. And Shane, I know you're in the same position, and I'm excited to talk through today what you do. But in short, what I want to just try to do is kind of say what I think your agency does for the dentist, and you tell me what I got right, what I got wrong, and where what I might have left out. So you guys are a marketing agency. You work with dentists, and you help those dentists generate more new patients for their office, and you manage all of their digital as well as other forms of marketing as well where needed. What did I get right? What did I get wrong?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much exactly it. We're primarily a digital marketing company, so we do website design, website management, and then we also we have crews that go out and do like content day sessions with photos and videos, and we implement all of that into the website. And that's a really big, part of our overall strategy. And then aside from that, it's the SEO, the Google ads, the social media ads management, those primarily. And then we also help support some of like the material that they may use like in their ground marketing efforts or in their internal marketing in the office. We'll have our design team put something together, but that's kind of in a nutshell, our service offering.
That's awesome. How did you get into dental?
It's funny. You probably get asked this all the time too, but I had my dentist, who's also a friend, had purchased a practice from a doctor who had it for 30 years, didn't even have a website, right? It was no marketing or anything like that. And I had the marketing background in journalism, and then later on into a marketing career. And so he just kind of asked me like, hey, could you maybe help me out with some of the marketing? Here's some of the things that we need to do for the practice. And I kind of was just like, sure, why not? It's just something different and kind of a little side hustle. And really, enjoyed it because I was able to blend a lot of like the storytelling that I was able to learn like from my journalism days, blend that into the dental industry. And I realized really quickly that there wasn't a lot of that happening at that time. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up referring me to one of his friends who had worked at a corporate office with him who had a startup. And then that person referred, and then I had like 4 clients. I was still working a full-time, job.
Yeah.
And at like 4 clients, I had replaced my monthly income for my full-time job where
That's
I was
awesome.
working, 20 hours doing the side hustle a week and 40 hours a week working the thing. I was like, there may be something here, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, because I was going to actually ask you how you started your agency, because I think that's where a lot of people struggle, right? So there's a lot of people out there who have a skill set, or they learn a skill set at their job, and they're really not equipped to be at a job, right? It's not the place for them. At least that's how I felt. And I didn't really understand what being an entrepreneur was. I just knew that I got bored every year and changed jobs. So when did you figure out like, hey, this is or how did you figure out like I need to be an entrepreneur and I need to be over here doing this rather than going the safe route? Was it when you got to that monetary safety net, or was there something else that triggered that?
Yeah, so I was kind of in the same boat as you, Gary, where I had been at this job for only a year. And don't get me wrong, like it wasn't like I hated this marketing job. Like it was a nice job. I was comfortable, which a lot of times is a bad thing in the big grand scheme of things. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my boss and everything. But I realized at that point, only a year in, I was already bored. And this is a trend that was happening. And people would always tell me, like, you change jobs too often. And I was like, I know, I get so bored. And so entrepreneurism never even crossed my mind. But then once I was just, helping my friend out, and then I had a couple of clients, I was like, okay, wait a minute, like there's a whole new world here. And so I had actually ran across a guy locally who was doing something similar, but in a different niche. And I saw like how he had his team built out and how he was working on like building just like a company culture and all of these things. And I was like, why can't I do that? Like maybe that's the answer. Maybe, every place that I've worked, there's a reason that I want to switch jobs and always be like changing it up. And so that's kind of how it happened. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't grow up as a kid thinking I was going to be a business owner. Like none of that was on my radar. It just kind of happened accidentally once I realized the freedom that I could create for myself and for my family, but then also how I had creative control over what we were doing for those offices. And that was honestly the most thrilling part for me, was not having someone kind of looking over your shoulder being like, no, we can't do this, we can't do this. It was just more of like, hey, make it happen. And I like that.
Yeah, there's a running joke in dental for all those that are listening that aren't in dental, is that if you're not a dentist, you end up here by accident and then you're not allowed to leave. And it's pretty funny. I find that to be pretty true. Now, one of the things that I always see agencies do when they start is they usually start really broad, right? So they offer a bunch of services to a bunch of different people. And the smart ones usually end up niching down, but it sounds like you kind of accidentally niched down. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I never worked in anything really outside of dentistry. I had a couple of the dental clients who had referred me, like a couple chiropractors that they were friends with locally. But then I realized that was like chiropractic, just wasn't for me. And then I started hearing from my mentors as well, like you need to niche down. And I was like, well, that's easy because I already have and didn't even know I was supposed to do that. So really, I never worked outside of dentistry. I was never, a generalist or anything like that. It was always dental. And to this day, it's funny because I can go into a room just like you, Gary, and I could have a conversation with somebody and they'll ask me, like dental students will ask me at conferences, like, oh, so where do you practice? I'm like, actually, I'm a marketer. And they're like, well, you know all the dental lingo. It's like, yeah, that's what happens when you get pulled in here.
Yeah, exactly. So now you said you didn't get into chiropractic. It wasn't for you. Why wasn't it for you?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons was I had found success in dentistry already. So I kind of knew the terminology. I knew, what worked in that space and what didn't work necessarily. And I was still kind of figuring it out, but I had an idea. With chiropractic, when I came in, while yes, it's still medical, the type of patients are completely different as far as like what their needs were. And then the doctors themselves, like I literally, like one of the chiropractors I was working with at the time, I was telling them how I had a root canal done and they were telling me how like awful root canals were and how you shouldn't be getting root canals and all of these things. And so it was just I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to mesh well in this community long term. And again, when I already having some success with dental offices, I was like, well, I think this is a quicker way too to like grow my name out there. It's like, dentists talk, it's they'll refer and that's kind of how we built the whole thing.
Yeah, and I used to work with a lot of chiropractors too, and the thing I noticed was there wasn't a huge cost difference to drive a new patient for a dentist versus like a GP dentist versus a chiropractic. Maybe chiropractic is a little bit cheaper, but the ROI for the customer is dramatically different. And really the only chiropractors that are really doing really well with that are the ones that have the insurance side of it tied up. And that's a tough game, right? You need to find people who've been in accidents, who the insurance company's already approved for them to come in, and that's a whole racket in itself. So you definitely made the right choice. I had to go through the same process of like choosing that, and it sounds like you made the right choice. Now let's go over your team a little bit. So right now you're doing about $1 million a year. You have 9 team members. And tell me a little bit about how you've built to where you're at right now. How did you get your customers and kind of your trajectory?
Yeah, so my first piece of advice is I started hiring a team way too late, way too late. And so you definitely advise hire before you think you're ready. But yeah, so we started, as I had mentioned, with just some of like referrals here, kind of in the local, Indianapolis area where I live, and then from there I started getting into all of the typical, cold prospecting that was being taught out there in Facebook land in like 2017. So I was doing like some cold email marketing. I can't tell you how many cold emails I sent. I did get one office from it, and that one office, we were doing implant marketing with them, and this guy, for whatever reason, gave me a chance. I guess felt a connection when we chatted on the phone. And I was able to parlay that into 20 plus different offices coming over to us because we were able to get a really great testimonial from him, worked with him for several years, and he just so happened to be connected in all these different associations, which opened the doors, as you can imagine, for us as well. So that was really kind of how we got our big start, and we never actually ran any ads, never ran Facebook ads for ourselves, never ran Google ads for ourselves.
Same.
We literally just built relationships with our existing customers. Those customers would refer us, and then we also became friends with people who I guess you could say are somewhat influencers in our industry. We became friends with them, showed different results that we had gotten for people that they had knew who was like mutual friends, and then they kind of just started referring us that way. And now pretty much everything that we get is organically through different Facebook groups or different companies. So we're fortunate in the fact that we didn't really ever have to scale up ads for ourselves, at least at this point in our journey.
No, that's good. We built the same exact way. I think that's the best way to build. It's much easier to do that way, and you get a better quality customer as well. People who are finding you on Google are much harder to close and much harder to satisfy. So you said that you said you were late to hiring. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was one of those people, and again, maybe it's just because I didn't have that like entrepreneurial mindset growing up, or didn't have that person in my life that I kind of watched them build something. But I was always so fearful, as crazy as it sounds, that 1 month everything was just gonna be gone. Like I don't know why. It's just like this ghost in the back of my head. It's like, well, if you hire someone, then what if 3 clients leave? How are you gonna pay that person?
Yeah.
And so I constantly was just doing the work myself, and that was good to an extent because I really learned the ins and outs of everything that needs to happen. But it was about 2019 when I really was like, okay, I have to start hiring people and start getting people who are going to be able to succeed at this job better than what I can do, so I can oversee it and run the company and do what I like to do, which is business development, and getting out there and getting our name out there. That's what I enjoy most, and then overall vision of the company. So my first hire was actually a web developer. So that was massive because then we were able to start, having some consistency as far as quality control on that side of things. Then from there, it was a Google Ads manager. And then from that point, it was like social media ads manager. And then my like most recent hire, which was probably one of the first hires I should have made looking back at it, was my operations manager. I probably should have hired her, years ago. We just brought her on, like a few months back. And that has been a game changer for us because it's allowed us to really optimize our systems and like our project management software and really make sure that we have everybody, on the same page and getting things done, and takes a lot off my plate. So that hire was the most critical, but it was the most recent one that I made.
How'd you pick a good operations manager?
Man, so I consulted with a ton of different people in the agency space just on like, does this person need to have marketing background? Or if they don't need to have marketing background, what should I be looking for? And ultimately, one of my mentors had told me about this called the Colby assessment.
Yeah.
And he said, his company, they have, I think, like 40 full-time team members in his agency. He was like, everybody takes this Colby assessment, and it's basically 4 different categories with a score of 0 to 10. And he told me, he's like, your operations manager, typically needs to be at this level for these 4 categories. And so I interviewed about 4 different people, and all pretty serious candidates. And each person I had to take this Colby assessment. It was like $50 a person to take it.
Yeah.
But, I was like, it's going to be worth it. And so when I found her, the connection was there. She didn't even have like full-on marketing experience, but she had the operational background just in a different industry. But she thought like an operations manager. And then she took this Colby assessment and just knocked it out of the park as far as like some of the fact finder and follow through things that we needed. And, it kind of worked out really well that when we brought her on, she saw the kind of some of the things that were a mess. I mean, honestly, and she was able to kind of put those puzzle pieces together in a way that my brain just does not, comprehend. And I hired her through LinkedIn. I posted a job on LinkedIn. I think I boosted it, used $600, I think, in ad spend on LinkedIn. And that's how I found her.
That's great. Yeah, I love Kobe. What's her quick start? Do you know? Is she a high quick start or a low quick start?
No, so she's a low quick start, but a high follow through. I'm a super high quick start and a low follow through, which is your typical entrepreneur.
Totally. So we actually use Kobe as well, and so for all of our project managers, we do the same thing. Like they have to meet a certain bar on their Kobe assessment, and then something that we've found or I've found is that there's a couple different kinds of op managers or project managers. They're similar, right? Is that you are going to, the ones that are more high quick start are usually more people focused, and the ones that are lower quick start are more process focused. So some people love to just go in and just manage processes and just stay in those and then repeat them. And some people like to kind of build them and then get out of them and then go and meet new people and do new things. So that's one little added nuance on top of that. But I love the Kobe assessment. We use that pretty much for every hire, but especially for project managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've started to use it now with like account managers that we're hiring too. It's like, okay, we need to make sure that our account managers are high fact finders. Like, they need to be detail oriented, but they also need to be, high follow through as well, because if, they're going to say that they're going to get something for the client, like we got to make sure that they are doing that. And unfortunately, I've learned that the hard way, because I've hired an account manager who was a low follow through like me, because you think, oh, I want to hire someone like me because we'll get along and all this. But then you realize like, oh, they have the same weaknesses that I do. And, I'm not great in that role. While I'm a great communicator, I'm always wanting to start and do so many different things that it's hard for me just to focus on one task deeply.
Yeah, we went back and forth on that. So we for a while we were like, okay, we're basically just going to have like more of a project manager type person managing the accounts, which is great because you get everything done. But sometimes they don't know how to communicate the value. So how do you balance that? Like, I'm interested to hear that because we've gone both ways. So I don't have the answer. I'm just curious of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're trying to figure that part out of it always as well. But we have the account manager is like pretty much the sole contact for the client. So they are just the communication vessel between the client and us and the client. And then they come back and then we'll come to our marketing manager and basically let them know, hey, here's X, Y, and Z, what the client's saying, here's what we may need to do on that. And then the account manager, the marketing manager, and the operations manager kind of all meet together, multiple times throughout the week at that point to then delegate, what tasks need to be delegated to which team member, how that needs to be put into our ClickUp project management system. And then the account manager then knows what's going on and then can communicate that back to the client. So the marketing manager is really involved in that communication with the account manager. But right now it's the account manager is pretty much the communication person with they have to have a pretty good understanding though of exactly what we do. So they're not just communicators, like they're also, kind of helping present ideas on calls and that sort of thing too. So it's kind of a balance of the two.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one thing that we've learned is that for project managers, kind of like you did, or an ops manager, they don't need to have dental experience or marketing experience. They need to be good at what they're good at, and they'll be able to figure out what they need to do to support the company. We've found that for account managers, it's account management experience is huge. Like that's the biggest component. And then you can teach dental and marketing. Now for some of our leadership, we really like to have people who have that dental experience in there. So we have a lot of people who have tons of dental background, people from other, large organizations in the dental world, like working at dental practices. So we've kind of seen that balance. What is on the account management side, what have you found to be successful? Do you want them to have the marketing experience? Do you want account management experience? Do you want the industry specific niche that you're in experience? A little bit of all. Like how do you tackle that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like they have to be great communicators. They have to be people, I guess would be the way to say that. But yeah, so our account managers, first thing I look at is, do they have that experience of managing accounts, managing multiple accounts, and can they do that and stay organized? So that's kind of first and foremost. The second most importance there would then be marketing. But again, a lot of the marketing aspects can be taught. But if they have marketing background, even if it's just fairly general, then that's a plus. And then third on that list, honestly, is the industry experience, because it's there probably are some good like dental assistants or people like that who kind of are getting out of the op and wanting to work more remote. We just haven't hired anybody like that, not because for any particular reason. We just haven't ran across any that have applied. But I would say that just from my personal experience, the account manager doesn't necessarily need that industry experience, because they're going to learn through talking and communicating with the clients, and then training with whoever they're training under. Like they're going to pick up on what's going on, what some of the lingo is, what PPO is versus fee for service. And yeah, so I think that's probably the least important, and that's probably where too many agencies get hung up, is they think that account manager needs to have that exact industry experience, when a lot of that is, can be taught. It's the intangibles like communicating that you can't teach.
Yeah, 100%. And so what's your vision? Like, what are you working on over the next year? Like, where's your main focus right now inside the company?
Yeah, so my focus is being able to get ourselves out in the marketplace more in like an omnipresence and educational type format. So currently, like I said, we haven't really been advertising, haven't had to worry about that, and that's great. But one of the things that we have here in the company is a lot of experience, a lot of data, and a lot of life lessons that we have learned through marketing in different cities, different types of practices, different services. I want to be able to expand that into more content on Instagram, onto webinars, and doing a lot more just education in the space, and let people kind of see what we've seen develop in dentistry from a marketing standpoint. And obviously, business can grow from that, and your brand can grow from that. But really wanting to focus more on that kind of educational side and sharing that with the marketplace, because that's where I have the most fun. Like I love creating that type of content. I love chat and marketing. But sometimes, as a CEO, I get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks and the fires that need to be put out and the managed and all these type of things, where I haven't properly blocked out that time in my schedule to do that. So that's really my goal over the next year, remainder of 2022, is to get myself where I can block off times in the week just geared towards some of that content creation.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go, and especially in the dental space, is it's called authoritative marketing, right? Marketing from a position of authority, of like, I have all the answers, here they are, and just doing it over and showing up over and over and over again. People find that very, very useful. We all listen to somebody in some vertical where we get our information from them like that, and we're quick to buy from them or refer people to them because they're the trusted expert. So I love that approach. Now, you said something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with, is having their head on fire, right? Like where you're like putting out fires, and I call it firefighting, and it's where you're running to one problem to the next problem to the next problem to the next problem, and then right when you get done and you're like, okay, we put out all the fires, and then boom, start over. And it seems like they always come on Monday. I don't know what it is, and like the fires don't come on Friday. They're always on Monday, and they're always at like 5 a.m. And you're getting up and you're looking at your phone, panic. So I know that world. I've lived in it for a long time, and it crops up less now. Like I've kind of learned how to manage that, but I would love to hear like what you're firefighting right now and like how you're working through that.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. Mondays and Tuesdays too, oddly, but yeah, like later in the week, not usually. I'll be honest, Gary. It's something that like I follow a lot of your content, on Instagram and TikTok, and other successful agency owners to try to figure this part out because I wish I had the answer for solving this, but I don't. What I have done is tried to put my team in a position to where they feel comfortable handling these situations, so it doesn't feel like it always needs to go up to me because I may not be the best person for the answer for that, especially within each department. And so that's something that I'm trying to do now is really teach this extreme ownership. That if you've read Jocko's book, like I'm a big believer in that, and all of our new hires now read that. I'm really trying to emphasize extreme ownership in the business, so then that way everybody feels like they have that freedom to be able to problem solve it and fight those decisions. And I'm naturally like, the thing that I'm becoming more open about now, and it's something I didn't like to use to share, but I'm naturally an anxious person. I've dealt with anxiety my entire life, and if I think somebody's like upset with me or mad at me, whether it's a client or a team member, like I could literally sit there for 3 hours and dwell on it, and like I'm worried. So it's like that's been something that I'm trying to do more of and be conscious of, is like, okay, just need to take a step back out of the emotions, out of the moment, analyze the situation, what is the potential solutions that we can put forward, and then trying to have my team members know that, hey, let's hear from you, let's get your input on what you think we can do to resolve this. And right now for us, it's mostly been in our transition from Asana project management system into ClickUp because we could have a whole episode on ClickUp, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we knew long term for the company it was going to be better for us.
Yeah.
So obviously in that transition, there are SOPs and things that got lost or didn't get transferred completely. So then there were times where you're like, okay, why didn't this get done? This should have been done yesterday, and it wasn't done. So that's really where we're finding a lot of our hiccups as far as fires right now. Luckily, less as I talk to you today, but still.
They're still there,
that's something that creeps up.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to laugh at your anxieties. I was laughing because I'm the same way, right? Like, and I feel like a lot of my anxieties are caused by me, right? Like so a couple frameworks that I've learned that people have taught me along the way. Number one, probably more than half the stuff that goes in my head is like made up and it's not real, right? Like 75%. So I start with, this is just a story that I have in my head. It may or may not be true. And a lot of times I assume, right, especially when you're remote, it's easy to just assume like, well, they're not working, or they didn't try, or they didn't look at, right? And that's a really unhealthy place to start because then you're going to be combative with that person. So right away you need to start from, hey, here's the story that I'm seeing. This is, this thing didn't get done, and I'm really curious of why it didn't get done or what happened. And then they're like, well, when we moved the SOP over, it deleted. Well, that's actually a really good learning experience, and now we can build on top of that. That's number one. Number two, getting a project manager is huge. I think if I was going to go back and do my entrepreneur journey earlier, I'd hire that person years earlier. And op managers are awesome, but you need somebody who tags along with you and puts out the fires with you. And what I mean by that is, here's what happened to me. So I'd go to Shane and I'd be like, okay, Shane, what's going on? And you'd be like, da-da-da-da. So I'd help you solve that problem, right? And we'd say, okay, let's solve that together, move forward. Then I'd go to the next one, the next one, the next one. Well, the framework that I built for you, even though it was intuitive to me, it wasn't intuitive to you because you've never done it before. So you only get bits and pieces of it. And we didn't really document that process. So having that project manager follow me and go and say, okay, we're going to go put out a fire. I need your help now to build the system behind it. They would then build it, and then I'd go to the next fire. And then slowly those fires started to go out. The other thing that I learned was I was actually creating a lot of the fires. Now, you're probably not doing this, but I for sure was doing this. I was going to people, and I was like, okay, let me solve the problem for you. Boom, 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 boom. And then I'd give them a whole plan, and then I'd leave the meeting, and then they would go try to execute the plan. And when it would fail, it was really on me. I gave them the plan. So I had to learn to like stop being the executor on everything and start letting other, like what your point, the ownership, say, okay, what do you think we should do? And let them develop a plan. And then when they develop that plan, they could roll it out. And that doesn't mean I still don't get in and sometimes help hands-on. It's just more about letting them figure it out, letting them fail, and letting them kind of grow that way. That those things greatly reduced my firefighting personally.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense because I remember in jobs that I worked, like I hate having a boss that felt like they were like overseeing and giving me direction and not letting me like, take on the problem, kind of by the horns and try to solve it myself. And so I realized that I was being that person without intentionally trying to be that person. So that's exactly kind of was a wake up call for me. And outside of the fact that it's like, I also want to be able to go on a family vacation and not have to worry that if something happens, nobody feels comfortable, fixing it. Like I want to make sure people feel comfortable taking action and the initiative to solve an issue when it arises.
Yeah, the first time I took a full week it was 2 week vacation, no phone, no nothing, didn't check in with business, was right after COVID. It was in 2020. That was the first time that I was able to do that, and things went wrong, and we fixed them, and we got better. Now, every year I unplug for at least 1 week, if not 2 weeks a year, where I just completely, I go on other vacations and stuff, but I get bored, but I intentionally unplug from the business 100% to where I'm not connected at all. You couldn't even I turn off my phone, I put it away, I don't have it with me, and it really helps my brain reset. I think that's really healthy to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you won an Emmy?
Yeah, 2 actually.
So how does that work?
Yeah, so in my journalism career, which actually, let me see, hold on one second. Here's one of my, let me put these back on. So here's one of my golden ladies.
No way,
here.
Bro. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So for everybody listening, if you're not watching on video, he literally has he's holding up an Emmy statue, like the one with the globe and the wings and everything.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, it needs dusted. But so I won a couple of them in 2015. But yeah, so my first job out of college was in journalism, and I worked for a couple different ABC News affiliates, and that's where I fell in love with the power of storytelling. And so my Emmys were both from different kind of long form journalism that I was doing, and they were more so on the positive side of things. They weren't deep, dark, stories that I'd been investigating. And that's when I realized that journalism wasn't for me long term, because a lot of news is bad news. And so as you get promoted or you go into bigger markets, you're at more and more shootings and all of these type of things. And I realized this is a drain. And so that's when I switched kind of into the marketing route and loved the storytelling and kind of blending that with helping a business. And then that's kind of what segued me into the dentistry and our whole philosophy and dental marketing too.
That's awesome. How have you? Great job on that. That's amazing. To me, that's you might as well say I went to Mars, right? Winning an Emmy. That's so cool. So, so how do you how do you feel about the space inside of dental marketing? Do you feel that dental marketers are get along typically and everything goes really smoothly, or do you feel more it's kind of a closed off and people don't speaking to their potential competitors and things like that?
Yeah, for me personally, and I see us still as a small fish in the grand scheme of things, but we've been lucky where we've met a lot of great people in the space that we've had great relationships. Obviously, you and SMC, and then we have some other friends, in the space. You had Joshua Scott from Studio 88.
Yeah, I love Josh.
One of your podcasts. Josh and I are friends, and some others as well. So I've been fortunate in that there have been some great people, but then at the same time, I've gotten wind of some other companies out there that I won't name, but have tried to trash us and kind of to compete for a sale basically. And that's unfortunate to see because there are so many practices that need good marketing, and that's I just see as totally not our game as far as trying to trash other companies. We have a style, and not every dentist is going to be right for us, nor are we going to be right for every dentist, and the same goes for other agencies out there too. And so for the most part, like I said, I try to close off all of the kind of the negativity and stay in those communities that I know that we're supported. And it's been great because I've been able to bounce ideas off of other dental marketing, CEOs, and they're willing to give me advice and feedback, and that's refreshing, because it's like, while we're competitors, it's like we're still humans at the end of the day, just helping each other out.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but there's plenty, like if you took your goals and you doubled them, and I took all my goals and doubled them, there's still plenty of dentists to go serve, right? It's not like there's only 10 dentists out there. So even in a niche market like we have, and then also to your point, like I'm super niche in the kind of dentist that I help. So you help different kinds of dentists than we help, and you're niche in the kind, and Josh is super niche in the kind of dentist he helps. Like he's super specific on the kind of people that he supports. And so it's everybody's kind of niche down in their area. And I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing that you can have people who are really good at this specific thing inside of these niches, and everybody can be successful. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. It's never a one size fits all. And I think for dental marketing, because obviously, back in the day, it was kind of like voodoo to market your dental practice. So as those first dental marketing companies came, people didn't have much choice. Like everything was kind of the same. Everything kind of looked the same. Now it's awesome, because each agency or company has their own type of style, the way they do things. And that's great, because it's not a one size fits all. Each office is different, each location is different, and there's plenty of fish in the sea is the way I look at it.
Yeah, 100%. Is there if someone wants to learn more about you guys or reach out to you, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, crimsonmediagroup.com. Actually, websites, we're excited. We're in a process of a complete redesign, so we're super stoked about that. But crimsonmediagroup.com, definitely where you can reach out to us. And then you can also follow me on Instagram at Shane Simmons 09. And then Facebook, you can always find me on there as well. But Crimson Media Group, that's probably the best way to get a hold of us and kind of take a look at what we do.
Marketing companies are never happy with their website. You know that? Like every time we do our website, it's always like, oh yeah, and then the next one's coming out. Like, right, we start, man, I don't like this and I don't like that. We're so critical, right? It's funny.
Do so many, like with us, like we do just get so caught up doing our client websites. It's like, oh yeah, we probably need to like fix that thing on ours, or add, that thing we've been meaning to do on ours for the last 15 months.
The cobbler's kids' shoes, right? The cobbler's kids don't ever have shoes because they're busy making shoes for everybody else. 100%. But yeah, I'm always like, oh, we got to redo this, and why isn't this done yet? And but we get busy doing actual dental marketing, so it's hard to drag the team away from that. Well, it's been really good having you on. I appreciate you coming on, sharing about your business, and just being open and honest, talking through the good stuff and the bad stuff. And I love everything that you guys are doing. And I'm one of those people that support you and want to see you guys win. And I think that there's plenty of room in the industry for lots of people to be successful. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, and I appreciate this and your friendship, and keep producing that great content, because I'm always refreshing my Instagram feed looking for your next video. So we love it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.